Rockford's mission is to align community resources in support of public school strategies to raise student achievement, improve the health and happiness of our children, and advance the economic and social well-being of our community.
Welcome. What a pleasure to see you all here. We're delighted that we share a vision, and that is that in the city of Rockford we're a learning community, and that all children graduate from high school prepared for post-secondary training and a job, or ready to go to college, and that drives our mission, which is to align resources that exist in our community behind and beneath and below the district's own strategic plan so that students have the greatest likelihood for success. That's the vision and the mission that brings us all together. And it's not the work that will get done this year, it's the work of a generation. 20 years from now, we may say we have great public schools, we love them. 10 years from now, we will be able to say, boy, it's good we got started in 2010. 5 years from now, we will be able to point to very specific quantitative results from the work of alignment.
The next case study that I'd like to present to you is around parent engagement. We know that that's going to be a really big topic for all the committees, and it was for Nashville, which is why we decided to put together a committee devoted towards parent engagement, because it was coming up in all of the committees, and how do we get parents more involved in the schools, or how to get the parents information that they need to make decisions with. Phase one, the MNPS goal, the school's goal was that we will immerse every family in their children's education. So the committee took that and started working with it. The vision that this committee came up with is that parents and caregivers will learn how to best prepare their children for successful learning in preparation for the school year. The expected outcomes in our first event, we decided to have an event, would be that we have 200 children, or 200 adults, 300 children, that we would have somewhere around 10 organizations assisting us with this and presenting workshops, and that we would have a parent satisfaction rate at the end of a post-survey of 75% approval. We also surveyed our parents. What information do you need to be successful with your children in the school systems? So they came back, of course, I don't think these were exactly the parents' words, but this is kind of how it came out to be: advocacy, resiliency, development, communications. How do I as a parent get more involved with the schools? How can I get more involved with the schools? Culture, non-traditional support, and youth culture. So we took that information and used it, right? So now we go into phase two, which is community engagement. So we're back to page 20 in your workbooks, right? So we're back to the ITP. This committee now goes back, takes the information, we take what we learn, we take what we know. We may not know everything yet, but we're learning. Take what we do know, put it into the invitation to participate. So as you read through this list, you're going to see that we kind of covered all the bases. You know, the community responded back with what the needs were. So we move into phase three, pilot implementation and evaluation. We created a final plan, including participating organizations for the pilot. And of course, when we wrote the invitation, one of the important steps that we go through at Alignment Nashville is that invitation to participate, once written, goes to the operating board. The operating board is kind of a communications channel that they look over it and see, okay, I'm hearing these are my committees, I see how this can relate, maybe offer some suggestions that we can maybe strengthen the invitation to a little bit with, get some more feedback on it, or they may just say, you know, this is beautiful, send it, let's get out there to the community with this. So at the end of the day, at the end of this event, we expected 200 adults, 300 children. We had our, we registered, actually, we had our 200 parents, And we even had 400 more parents in a waiting list ready to come. Now, we also did this in July 31st, so we're in the middle of the summer. We reached these parents with registration forms to be a part of this event before school let out. Prior to the event, we knew that we had a finite amount of resources to work with. We provided transportation, we provided food, we provided childcare. Those were all barriers that were identified by the parents to say, if you want me to be there, these are the things I'm up against. So we had to make sure that we tore down some of those barriers. We raised funds. We purchased 5 Gray Line buses, tour buses, air conditioned, because it's in the middle of summer and we got children coming with them. We provided food because it's at the end of the month, and a lot of these families, because we're very strategic about who we reached out to, very low socioeconomic families. So at the end of the month, there may not be food in that home. And if the parents are going to leave, what are the children going to do? So we need childcare. So the YMCA stepped up, and they didn't only do childcare, they provided literacy camps for the kids. So we're actually getting them engaged with some really good learning activities while the parents go and do workshops and learn. And then we're providing food for everybody as well. So we're breaking down all those barriers that were identified. So we had to go back and call all these families, the first 200 families that registered, to see, are you still around and are you still want to come to this event? We found 100 of them. So we got out the list and we called the next 100 people until we got our 200 slots filled up, and we still had 400 waiting to get in. So we could have had a huge event. We just didn't have the resources for it yet. This is our first one, okay? Baby steps. This was our first one. We had 25 community organizations that wrote back with responses that said, we have workshops for you. And not only did we get a parent satisfaction rate of 75%, we got a parent satisfaction rate of 96%. I'm telling you, these parents want this information. They're just hungry for it. So our next move is to do a scale up. And so the committee went back and we started looking at, okay, we reached 200 parents. How do we reach 600 parents? You know, what's the next step? What's the next goal? So we also started identifying that to reach some of the families we wanted to reach, we had to go to them. We didn't have to go out and get them and bring them all in. Plus we have a cost issue. Can we provide transportation for all of these events every time we want to do one? But it was more importantly about getting to them in their communities. So we busted the city up into 4 quadrants, and we did a north and then a south in the spring. We had 100, these were called mini events. We had 125 parents at each one. We had a goal of 100. We had the children, we had childcare. We didn't do transportation nor food. So our costs were minimal on those 2 events. But we're also serving a smaller number of parents, and we only gave them 2 time slots of workshops. So we only needed a smaller number of workshops as well. But we did, I think, 14 sets of workshops at each one. There was 2 Saturdays back to back, so we just kind of mirrored it and made it a traveling road show. So we took it from North Nashville to South Nashville and reached more parents. Now this year we've reached over 600 parents for the year. They just did a strategic planning session yesterday morning before we flew up here. And now their goal, are you ready for this, is 10,000 parents. Our funding, as I mentioned earlier, we did some private funding the first event that helped us push this over. We did it with no school funding whatsoever because it was just brand new. But we did have a donor who recognized the importance of this. This year, from what we learned, because we learned a lot, we now had some numbers to substantiate the work that we're doing. We see the successes. We have a 96% approval rate by parents. So we went back to federal programs, because part of their initiative from No Child Left Behind and Title I money is parent engagement. So we gave them a pretty small budget of what we needed to do our work with this year, and they totally funded it. There was a couple small items that were not funded in Title I, understandably. And but that's okay. We worked that out through some other funding streams, but for the most part, 85%, 90% Title I covered. But that comes with some restrictions. We've learned that. So now the committee they understand the importance of we need to go out and look for some other funding. So that's Parent University in a really quick nutshell.